It's an old truism of UFO lore that men in black, or MIBs, are creatures of shadow, half in myth and half in rumour. Many accounts place them in the United States, and many critics dismiss them as folklore or psychological artifacts, to put it politely. But in his 1997 Men in Black, Robert Bull transcribed the remarkable case from the United Kingdom, a case that carries many of the classic MIB motifs and physical traces. This is the account of Maria Kom, a 14-year-old boarder in 1980 at the Convent of Jesus and Mary in Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire, an environment of strict rules, cloistered life, and psychological stresses. Maria was under treatment by a Dr. Black for acute anorexia and insomnia. On a restless night, she got up at about 1 a.m. and gazed at the stairs from her window overlooking a tennis court enclosed by wire netting. And to her astonishment, she saw a large, bell-shaped flashing light in the tennis court area. She watched it for approximately 5 minutes, and later, at around 1:30 a.m., she looked again, and the object had vanished. She then heard a strange, whirling sound, glanced upward, and saw the object again, now unlit, hovering just above her window, and moments later had departed rapidly. Next morning, although she told no one, she was surprised when, while playing tennis, she slipped and fell and discovered at the very spot she'd seen the object, the tennis court bore a shallow circular depression about 45 feet in diameter, apparently scorched or burnt. The damage was inspected by the police. She remained silent about her sighting, fearing ridicule or even expulsion from the convent. 3 or 4 months later, while in maths class, one of the nuns, a Sister Jennifer, called Maria out, saying that she had a visitor. Maria expected a relative or benign visitor, but instead she was led into a dining room where 2 men dressed in black sat at a large table. The fire in the room was lit, and the room felt warm, but the moment she saw the men, Maria felt cold, and she put on her jacket. She'd never seen these men before. She asked their identity, and they replied they were to do with Dr. Black, her psychiatrist. She stared at their eyes, which she later described as a strange brownish grey, rather than typical human hues. The men engaged in polite conversation, asking about school and how she was and so on, and several peculiarities struck Maria. They seemed to be identical, like twins. Their skin was smooth. There was no beard, no sign of stubble or even a need to shave. Their black suits were immaculate, razor-sharp in crease and matched by black tie and black socks, all perfectly matched in tone. They didn't seem to wear watches. In fact, one asked Maria what time it was. They had drunk coffee, but when she shook hands with them, their hands were ice cold, unexpected for somebody who'd been holding a hot drink. Maria, unwilling to volunteer what she had seen on the tennis court, denied anything strange had happened. The men pressed, "Are you sure?" And she said yes, although she felt they knew she was lying. Then the lunch bell rang, and the men asked Maria what the bell signified, told her she could go to lunch, and told her they must depart. One asked Sister Jennifer if Maria could show them the way out, and as they left, they walked in perfect synchrony, arms swinging in step as though a single mind guided them both. Outside, they entered a black car. Maria observed the car had mirrored windows. She couldn't see inside, but she thought the men could see outward. When the door briefly opened, she glimpsed only darkness inside, no seats, no interior detail. The license plate had white characters on a black background, a style she found very odd. The vehicle departed with no sound, no engine hum, no exhaust noise, no disturbance of the air. She also noticed that although it turned out of the convent gate, she didn't see it moving up the hill that led away from her convent. The day was windy, but the men's hair didn't move, no rustling, no reaction to the wind. She stood frozen for several minutes, unable to move. Sister Jennifer called her, and eventually she snapped out of it. Later, when Maria asked Dr. Black, the psychiatrist denied sending anybody at all. Although the men said they would return, they never again appeared, at least in physical form. Over time, Maria reported a growing array of extraordinary abilities and phenomena. While still at the convent, she bent a spoon, Uri Geller style. She timed herself swimming underwater for 5 minutes before resurfacing. She experienced out-of-body episodes. Her intellectual and creative output surged, measured by Dr. Black. On at least one occasion, she reportedly flew, observed by other girls who chased her when she flew low enough. After leaving the convent, she allegedly caused light bulbs to burn out by will. She dreamed of being inside UFOs. She claimed to start a dead car engine. By mental will alone, she repeatedly caused red traffic lights to turn green. She had multiple UFO sightings, one so large and close that it filled the window of her office. She predicted pregnancies and marriages of friends. In one dream, she was stabbed in the arm, but awoke to find an actual wound with blood. The credibility of this case rests heavily on Maria's first-person account, as mediated through Bull. We've only got Bull's text. No publicly known police records, for example, independent interviews, photographs, or external corroboration beyond the burnt depression, which itself is part of the story. Children and adolescents are especially susceptible to imaginative replay, confabulation and influence from suggestion. The convent environment and the stresses of anorexia and insomnia, the psychologist's influence, and the narrative tropes of UFO lore could all have shaped this memory. It is worth noting that in the morning after the UFO sighting, none of the other girls reported seeing any strange lights. If the object was bright and physically present over the tennis court, you'd expect more witnesses, especially in a boarding school-type environment. But then they might have just been asleep. There are no newspaper reports, police logs, or local archival records cited by Bull or discovered in my own, albeit cursory, searches. Now, that absence doesn't disprove the case, it just weakens the strength of corroboration, doesn't it? Nevertheless, the internal consistency of Maria's details, hair, clothing, synchronized walking, the cold touch, all that stuff, that all matches numerous MIB stereotypes from other cases, and this consistency could reflect a genuine interaction. If we entertain the claim of the presence of a 45-foot depression, then this is the kind of hard evidence that elevates a case from just a story into something requiring plausible physical explanation. If this had been independently documented, that would have been a powerful anchor, but there is no external verification given, and so the trace is just a narrative flourish than a confirmed detail, as it were, which is a shame. Putting aside the trace, the phenomenology of the visitation is rich with classic MIB motifs. The identical twin figures is seen in a lot of MIB encounters. The featureless smooth skin with no facial hair, the black suits perfectly tailored and creased, and all the monochrome attire. No watches, that's been mentioned in several MIB encounters. The cold, insubstantial feel, the synchronized walking, the mirrored windows, and, interestingly, no visible interior in the car. Now, that's the first time I've heard that mentioned. I don't recall another case with a peek inside the MIB's car. The car being silent is mirrored in many other cases, and the unruffled hair as well. Now, just because these things match other cases, well, does that mean we have to consider that it's true? Once there's a template for what you should have seen, it's easy to make up a story that that's what you saw, isn't it? Once the concept of men in black and their stereotypical attributes exists, then any other recollections will probably conform, even if it's unconsciously, to that pattern. On the other hand, the level of detail we experience in this story might just represent a genuine strangeness of its own. The post-encounter phenomena that Maria reports are of a different order. They suggest an energetic or psychic sort of leakage or transformation, not just a mere visitation. In classic UFO contactee literature, especially John Keel's writing, these are referred to as psychic fallout. Keel himself proposed that the UFO phenomenon is a multidimensional phenomenon that manipulates perception, breaks physical boundaries, and induces psychic effects in human subjects. And in that tradition, the Maria case is unusually rich, spoon-bending and starting a car with your mind, altering traffic lights, waking up with injuries that you had sustained in your dreams, predictions, and so on. And from a skeptical or neurological perspective, many such claims are prone to self-deception, sleep paralysis, hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucinations, confabulation or selective memory. The absence of contemporaneous third-party documentation or even other witnesses reduces their evidential weight. One criticism often levelled at MIB law is that it's overdetermined by US cases, and that non-American instances are scarce. Now, Bull's inclusion of UK cases is itself a corrective. In the British UFO subculture, MIB-type reports are fewer, but they're not unknown. In the late 60s and 70s, quite a few British researchers reported being visited by shadowy figures after UFO incidents. The British UFO Research Association, which published Bull's work, has archivally listed other strange men and other visitation tales, but I find no independent, peer-reviewed historical case matching the depth of Maria's account in UK journals or newspapers. No press clippings about scorched tennis courts in Milton Keynes, no local police records, no verification in Milton Keynes press archives, and that gap means that this case sits squarely in unverified lore for me, rather than an established encounter. But, as Arthur C. Clarke once suggested, two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not, and both are equally terrifying. And in a case such as Maria's, we've got to entertain both the external and the internal hypothesis, or even a hybrid. If we're thinking of external intelligences, then Maria's case represents a genuine contact event with an intelligence that operates under rules different from ours. The visitation might be a probe, a monitoring interface, or a psychic seed intended to influence human consciousness. The MIB agents might be acting not as terrestrial agents, but as emissaries or guardians of the contact boundary, let's say. Alternatively, Maria's case can be interpreted as a profound psychological event projected outward. And in this view, the sighting might be some dissociative vision triggered perhaps by insomnia or psychological stresses. The MIB's visitation is then a constructed vision, drawing on cultural imagery and the unconscious acting through archetypes, but all of that psycho-twaddle misses one point, and that is, at least in Bull's writing of this, there is no suggestion whatsoever that Maria is aware of UFO lore, is into UFO lore, or that UFO lore has any bearing on Maria's existence at all. So we can wander off into trying to frame this in as many different potential ways as we can. But something in this tale just makes me lean towards believing it. Even decades later, with no external confirmation, it persists as a recorded encounter, an echo of something alien, inscrutable. And for me, the mystery around this is not, did it happen? I think it probably did. The mystery here is, who are the MIB, and what is their purpose? From the depths of the vault, this is Eerie's Vault Live. Every Friday at 9 p.m. GMT, the lines are open. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, strange creatures, time slips, encounters you cannot explain. If you've seen something unusual, if something has haunted you, followed you, or simply left you wondering, then this is your place to tell it. Call in and share your story. You can watch the show live on YouTube or stream it directly at eeriesvault.com. And if you're too shy to call, then you can email ahead of the show at eeriesvault@gmail.com and I will read your story out for you on air. That's Eerie's Vault Live, Friday nights, 9 p.m. GMT. Be part of it. The YouTube show is only a part of the vault. Beyond the broadcast is the archive. And at eeriesvault.com you'll find our growing library of case files, first-hand accounts of the unexplained, written reports from people who lived through something strange. And we need yours. If you've carried a story for years, if you've never had the chance to put it into words, and this is where it belongs. Your report will stand alongside others, building a record that may one day help us see patterns that we cannot see alone. And it's easy. Go to eeriesvault.com, open the Case Files page, and hit the Submit a Case button. Fill in the details and send it on its way. Because strange events pass quickly into silence unless someone records them. Don't let your story vanish. Put it in the vault. For those of you who want to go deeper, there is the Eerie's Vault Patreon. Here you'll find the evidence. Original newspaper clippings, forgotten publications, rare documents. You'll see the raw material behind the stories, and you'll gain access to exclusive videos, some filmed on location at the very places we discuss, and you'll be able to watch private follow-up videos to the cases already covered on the main channel. It's not just about watching here, it's about joining the search, and by supporting the vault, you help to keep the archive alive, help uncover more material, and help to bring these stories into the light. And if you've ever wondered what all these marks are on this map here, well, patrons get access to this interactive encounters map to peruse at their leisure. It gets updated regularly and will grow to be one of the most comprehensive encounters maps in the world. If you've ever wanted to be closer to the investigation, if you've ever wanted to see what lies behind the curtain, then Patreon is where it begins. And with numerous membership options, what are you waiting for? Head over to the vault.